Richard Southwick.
Good evening. My name is Richard Southwick. I've been a practicing architect for 40 years. I specialize in the revitalization of historic buildings. I was elected a fellow of the AIA, and I speak to you as the director of historic preservation at the architectural firm Beyer Blinder Bell, and as an architectural partner of the late Richard Blinder. Dick Blinder was a lifelong resident of Montclair, served for many years on the planning board, and headed the Montclair Redevelopment Authority at the time the Lackawanna Plaza project was conceived. Although developed in the 1980s, the project was grounded in solid preservation policy, still very relevant today. The project adaptively reused an obsolete rail station and train shed for important community-based retail uses. The Lackawanna train station was listed on the National and State Registers of Historic Places in 1973 due to its architectural quality and historic significance as an extraordinary example of early suburban railroad design. The essential underpinnings of the 1980s redevelopment are perhaps more relevant today than even when the project was first developed.
Mr. Southwick?
Yes.
Understanding, that maybe you do have a tangential association with this application. This is really supposed to be comment on the evidence and the testimony and the application as it was presented. Okay, so I really don't think that going off into the original development is appropriate.
Well, let's talk about the current proposal then.
If you want to talk about the current proposal, we'll allow you to comment on that, but please, again,
Sure.
keep your comments succinct, because the clock is ticking.
Mr. Nguyen. The Fourth Ward needs a similarly sized food store to serve this local market, not a larger regional market. The insertion of a new supermarket within the existing structure is absolutely practical. Many successful examples of this exist, especially in the early 1990s food halls throughout the Northeast. Reading Market, Chelsea Market, even the city retail food market in Arthur Avenue are all good examples of this type of building typology. Most recently, we have completed the installation of a new Whole Foods supermarket in the restored Haynes department store in Newark, so this can absolutely be done. These open grid structures provide light-filled retail spaces and regular column spacing to allow for the flexible plan layouts. This planning model has proved to be successful and can be employed at the Lackawanna train sheds. There's nothing more fundamental and environmentally smart than to reuse existing structures for new uses rather than to undertake demolition. The retention and rehabilitation of the existing Lackawanna train sheds keeps the original construction out of the waste stream, that is landfill, will employ considerably more labor than new construction in its rehabilitation, and significantly will retain the architectural unique sense of place of this distinguished Fourth Ward site, important to both the local community and the township overall. It is rare that new construction can replicate the significance of the site, and it is absolutely impossible to replace its authenticity. The 2016 historic preservation element of the Township of Montclair Master Plan calls for retaining and preserving the historic character of a property, and that the removal of historic materials or alteration of features and spaces that characterize a property should be avoided. Furthermore, the master plan strongly promotes sustainability through the retention of existing historic structures. Surely the removal of the historic train sheds is in violation of these sections of the master plan, certainly in principle, if not by technical interpretation. I strongly urge the planning board to consider a plan that retains existing train sheds and is more sensitive to the historic character of the site. Hampshire and Pinnacle have engaged a talented architectural team. I just believe they're on the wrong track. However, the original premise promoted by Dick Blinder when the project was first conceived, which preserved more of the National Register site, should be retained. I ask that the planning board request the applicant to revise their plans to retain the train sheds. This will result in a more appropriate project scaled to the neighborhood, which will maintain, even enhance, the significance of Lackawanna Plaza.